What's good, YouTube? I have my training deck today, Dark Magicians. So this is the deck that I destroy with Blue Eyes, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what Dark Magicians might be able to do today. So I do have the Arcana, the Anniversary, and the LOB artwork, Dark Magicians. And then I also have Red Eyes, because Dragoon is just too good in Dark Magicians. I am using both of the Palladium Oracle monsters just because I find it easy enough to go into, to get them into the graveyard so you could draw 4. Which means I am using Dark Magician Girl as well. So there's quite a few bricks, but there's ways you could empty your hand as well. So then I use 3 copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician. This is one of those ways to empty your hand full of dead bricks. And then I have 3 copies of Magician Soul. I'm just waiting for the reprint because this card is just way too expensive. You need it for so many different decks, but Dark Magician is definitely essential. So I do have the 3 Magician's Rods right here. So this card I usually add a Soul Servant from my deck to my hand with that. I feel like it's a little bit better than Dark Magical Circle because you usually brick because you can't add monsters with a circle. So yeah, either Eternal Soul or Soul Servant. And then I have 3 copies of Keeper of Dragonic Magic, or Keeper of Dragon Magic. So this card is pretty cool in Dark Magicians. Basically, it could turbo out multiple copies of Red-EyesDarkDragoon. So this card is actually like probably my favorite card in the deck. It's really good right now for Dark Magicians. I'm surprised no one's using it. And then we have 3 copies of Soul Servant. So that's probably the best Dark Magician spell that we have in the deck. There's a way you can get all 4 of the Dark Magician monsters. You have Dark Magician Girl, Palladium Oracle Mahad, and Mana. If you get all 4 of them in the graveyard, you're just drawing 4 cards every turn. So it's pretty nice to do that. There's also other combos you could do in order to utilize like Palladium Oracle Mahad, or you know, just top deck Magician's Soul, because you could actually put your monsters on the top of your deck, not just spell and traps. So it's pretty cool. I do have 2 copies of Dark Magic Circle. So Dark Magical Circle is pretty cool because, you know, you get to banish your opponent's cards. But other than that, usually you don't get too many spell and traps using its effect unless you combine it with Soul Servant. So that's why I only have 2 copies. Just in case one of them gets destroyed, you still have access to it. And then we have a Dark Magic Attack. You never know what deck you're going to play against. If they have any back row whatsoever, you definitely want access to that card. And then you have Secrets of Dark Magic. So this is the quick play fusion in the deck. So it's pretty useful with the Dark Magicians or Dragoon. But yeah, usually if you don't have access to any other fusion cards, you do want 1 copy in your deck just to search. And then I have 3 copies of Fusion Deployment. So with that Keeper of Dragonic Magic, you could actually search any fusion card. This card counts as that. So Fusion Deployment is a normal spell card which lets you summon Dark Magician from your deck pretty much. Or it could be Dark Magician Girl too, as long as either one is listed as material for the fusion monster. So it's kind of like a second Magician Soul in a way. So definitely using both helps you turbo through your deck a little faster. I also have 3 copies of the Eye of Timaeus. So Eye of Timaeus is pretty cool because with Fusion Deployment, it's actually a 1 or a 2 card Dragoon. And as long as you could get a Dark Magician on the field, you could just bring out a Dragoon basically for 1 card, you know. So it's pretty nutty. It's not searchable, but it's like one of the easiest ways to bring out Dragoon. And I do have 3 copies of Ultra Polymerization. So this card is insane in this deck, especially with, what is it, Keeper of Dragon Magic. If you draw this and Keeper of Dragon Magic, you could pretty much go for double Dragoon, like really easy. But I do have 1 copy of Red Eyes Fusion, just because you do want to have the Anaconda play in your deck. So a lot of people are using 2 or 3 copies, and it's pretty good, but the only problem is it pretty much creates a ceiling for your first turn. You're going to get a Dragoon probably, but you're just going to sit on that Dragoon. But in this deck you could make multiple Dragoons, so that's why I only have 1 copy of that, because it's more of a finisher play. And then I have 3 copies of Super Polymerization. So after you use your Red-Eyes Fusion, your Anacondas are still alive to use against your opponent with this card. It's also a really good card in Dark Magicians because they go into so many different fusions already, and then all you gotta do is stack all the extra materials in your deck to make this card even more live. So yeah, the longer the game goes on, the better that card's gonna be. I have 2 copies of Eternal Soul. Just like Dark Magical Circle, if one of them gets destroyed, you want the access to the second one in the deck. But yeah, it's sort of essential for like the grind game. Without this card, you know, you can't really revive Dark Magician as easy. So yeah, it's definitely good. Plus, you could add Dark Magic Attack for free, even if you don't have access to Dark Magician. And I have 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. So all of your Dragoons, they can't be destroyed by card effects. So this card is really good in the deck. Also, Needle Sealing is a pretty cool card too. So yeah, maybe if that card gets a nice holo reprint, I'll swap it out for that. But Torrential Tribute is a pretty underrated card right now. It's pretty insane. And then I have 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just so you do have a decent way of stopping your opponent if they go first. And it's also a unique trap card. So some of these cards, these trap cards, if you have the Dark Magicians, the turn you set them using Dark Magician's effect, you could actually activate them. So that's why Torrential Tribute and Eternal Soul and Super Poly are pretty cool. And then for the extra deck, we do have the Dark Magicians, just 1 copy because its effect is useful, you know, but it's not critical. Drawing a card is cool, but it's kind of random, and other than that, it just flows into a Dark Magician Girl. So it's easy to summon, but its effect is kind of not as good as Dragoon. Dragoon covers more bases in its card, so you only need 1 really, in my opinion. And then I have 1 Ebon Illusion Magician. So rank 7s have lost favor since 2013 Dragon Ruler format, but I think this is one of the better ones for Dark Magician. You could also use Red-Eyes Flare Metal Dragon if your opponent's going to have 500 life points or less. It's really good, but this card's pretty cool because in the deck, I don't know if you noticed, but there's no illusion magic. So if you want to turbo out your Dark Magicians from the deck, you have access to it with this card. So it's pretty cool. The reason why I don't use illusion magic is because you do want Dark Magicians in your deck for your Red-Eyes Fusion play, at least 1 copy. So I do use 2 copies of Verte Anaconda. So after you use the first Red-Eyes Fusion, you could also summon another one and then use Ultra Polymerization or Super Polymerization, sorry. So it's good to have 2 just in case one of them gets negated, you know. It's you can use a Red-Eyes Fusion play again. And I have 3 copies of Red-EyesDarkDragoon. So Red-EyesDarkDragoon, normally most decks only like go for 1, right? But in this deck you could go for 2 or 3 copies, and with all those trap cards you might be able to set up a pretty nasty board for your opponent. It's also treated as a Red-Eyes Black Dragon on the field with Red-Eyes Fusion, but yeah, it's a really good card in Dark Magicians because it's almost more suited for Dark Magician, since it's it's Dark Magician plus any dragon. So you could use it with Keeper of Dragonic Magic. You could use it with your opponent's dragons with Super Polymerization, and it's just a pretty beefy card. If it gets revived from the graveyard, it loses the effect to burn your opponent twice, but it could still be an interruption, you know, a negate. But yeah, it's cool. But it's not overpowered, this format, because you do have to discard, so keep that in mind. And then I have 1 copy of Relinquished Anima. So this card is summoned with Magician Souls. Basically, it gives your Magician Souls more utility. You just summon this, and now you could take one of your opponent's monsters. So it's pretty cool. And then I also have this card, Imduk, the World Chalice Dragon. You could also use Link Spider, but this card I think is a little better just because it does have an effect where if it attacks a monster it points to going up, then it can destroy it. And also it's a dragon, so if you're using a Magical Eyes Fusion, you could banish this plus Dark Magician summon Dragoons. And I do have the Super Poly target, so Mud Dragon of the Swamp can basically summon out can be summoned from any two monsters with the same attribute. So it's pretty versatile. And I also have this card. It's kind of new. It's called Cordius the Trifastic Dealman. So kind of reminds me of Summon Skull a little bit, but it's basically any one of each of the extra deck monsters other than Fusion. So that's Exceed, Synchro, and Link. And so it's good against like certain Dragon Link boards, but yeah, it has a pretty nasty effect too. You could add spells and traps from your graveyard to your hand to destroy cards your opponent controls, and it could also gain attack. So it's pretty nifty. This card can attack all of your opponent's monsters once each, I believe, and it's used with 3 different Link monsters: World, Chalice, Guard Dragon, Almaduke. Wait, Almaduke. And then this card's pretty good against Invoked. So this card is any invoked monster plus 1 monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. So usually invoked, they'll go for Mechaba, and then maybe like a Shadow monster or something. So you could just summon this right off the bat for that. And then this card, I think is really good right now. It's called Eldritch the Mad Golden Lord. So if you're playing against Eldritch decks, you just fuse their monster plus any of their trap monsters or another Eldritch, and you summon this, and it can't be destroyed by card effects. And it's also 3800, so even if they have a 35 boosted Eldritch, they're not going to run over this. So all their traps can't get over it, and their monsters. So basically their whole engine. And yeah, it's just beefy against them. And then we do have 1 Starving Venom. It's one of the easiest ones to summon, any 2 darks, so this is probably the one you're going to be summoning out the most. But yeah, that's the 6 fusion monsters that I have for the super polymerization. And now moving on to the side deck, I have 2 copies of Godarla, the Mystery Dust Kaiju. So this card is really good against Berta. They're going for the Wind Barrier statues. All you got to do is tribute this to summon one, and then now you can basically play, you know. So it's really good right now, but you could also use it against other decks too. And then I have 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More to go along with countering big boards. It's pretty good. Your opponent can't respond to it usually, so yeah, it could negate their entire board, and then you could just go into Dragoon and start destroying their monsters and inflicting a lot of damage. And then I do have 3 copies of Mystic Mine. So Mystic Mine is pretty interesting in Dark Magicians because Dark Magician doesn't actually have an effect, right? It's a normal monster, so your spell and traps usually do a lot of the damage for you. So Mystic Mine doesn't inhibit Dark Magicians too much, but yeah, it's pretty nice addition to it. Plus, you usually don't summon too many monsters in it, so it could be really nasty to get over that in Dark Magicians. And then I do have 3 copies of Nibiru. So I think it's good against specific decks, maybe not Dragon Link because they can usually play against it, over it, but it could counter them, it could counter Virtual World, and yeah, I think it's one of my favorite hand traps overall, just because it is quite devastating for a lot of decks. And then we do have a few other cards right here. So if you're playing against a back row deck, this is Dark Magician already has Dark Magic Attack, but a lot of times you're either not going to see it as much or it's going to be negated, so it's good to have a second copy. And then I also have 2 copies of Bond between a teacher and student. So this card can search your Dark Magician or your Dark Magic Attack, plus it gives you an extra body on the board. All you got to do is control a Dark Magician, and then you special summon a Dark Magician from your girl from your deck. So it already helps your your Soul Servant fulfill its effect, so you can draw more cards. Plus, you could turn that Dark Magician into an Almaduke, and then go into Verte Anaconda. So it gives you 2 bodies, and it will search the Dark Magic Attack, so you could easily get over your opponent's back row. So just having this card plus multiple Dark Magic Attacks, if you draw one, it's still alive. It's really good. You could also use Dark Burning Magic. That's like a combination of the Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magic Attack. It destroys all of your opponent's cards, but It's a quick play, so the turn you set it, you can't actually activate it. So I don't know. It's a little bit slower in my opinion, and you know, if I'm not maining this card, then there's no point in going into it in my opinion. But you could try it out too. So yeah, that's pretty much the Dark Magician deck profile. But yeah, I do have some a few small little combos that I'll show you next time. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and happy dueling. Bye.